Anita Bailey.
And I'm David Bailey.
Today's show is about gaming and its effect on students. Gaming is an $18 billion industry, and at least one person in 60% of our households is considered to be a frequent gamer. Children aged 3 to 15 spend 5.6 to 12 hours a week, and so that means a good number of us are affected. But before we jump into our topic, let's tell you a little bit about who we are.
So I'm David Bailey, and my wife Danita and I, we've been married for 14 years. We have 3 children, ages 6, 8, and 10. I'm a 10-year veteran math teacher with my most recent time in Mansfield School District, and I have 20 years collectively working with students, whether it be in the classroom or private tutoring and coaching. So about 7 years ago, my wife and I started Noggin Educational Coaching, and we began to see a need to help students that were struggling on the home front. And so we started Noggin with the purpose of working with content, but also to help with study skills, time management, test prep, organizational skills. And so we've been serving students ever since.
So while he was beginning his teaching career, I was a work-at-home mom with 2 very small kids and a video production business. And so I'm watching David over the years work with children in different walks of life, and I was just struck by the disparity between the children who had a lot and the children who didn't have very much. I know one classroom you had 1 ream of paper to teach, was it 125 students?
Yeah.
For an entire semester. And so I was really inspired because, I realized that there's not less giftedness and purpose in the low-income areas than there were in the more affluent communities that he was working in, but there's a vast difference in the amount of resources that are available to them. So that was why I was inspired to start Noggin Educational Foundation. And what we do is we provide free educational services and resources to kids from low-income families. So we have programs like summer math and reading programs, free tutoring, and academic and career coaching. So why did we even decide to do a radio show? I had been looking for a medium to communicate to parents about the issues that we face helping our kids navigate through school. And so, David and I are in education, and it's not lost on us the irony that we struggle just as much as any other parents.
So that's what this show is all about. So we're going to tackle issues like bullying and scholarships and special needs, a lot of the things that parents work through from the home front, but there's not enough support, at least from what I see. And so we're going to tackle those issues week after week. We're going to bring in different experts and specialists to work through these things together. We're all going to learn together so we can all help our kids from the home front.
So now that you know just a little bit about us, we're going to take a quick break, and when we return, joining us will be Conchita Andrzejewski, did I say that right?
Yes, ma'am.
From CND Therapy, and Kevin Lambert from Great Life Counseling Center. And we want you guys to be a part of the show, so call in with questions or comments or anything that you want to say, and that number is 214-431-5062. And if you want to see our faces, we're live on Facebook at Noggin Foundation, and Noggin is spelled Noggin. And also, if you're on Facebook Live right now, it's going to pause just a little bit, but hang on there. We'll be back just in about 3 minutes or so.
Excited that you guys are here to join us today with our show. So today our topic is gaming and its effect on students. So joining us are Conchita Andrzejewski. She's from C&D Therapy in Mansfield, Texas. And we also have Dr. Kevin Lambert from Great Life Counseling Center in Addison, Texas. Welcome.
Thanks for having us.
So Conchita Andrzejewski is a licensed professional counselor, supervisor, thought field therapy diagnostic specialist, and a trauma therapy specialist. She began her career in the mental health field in 1991, working in a domestic violence shelter and later a public school. She then pursued her master's degree from Texas A&M Commerce in counseling psychology. She became a licensed professional counselor in 2001 and has since gained experience as a counselor in residential and outpatient settings. Most recently, she served as director of clinical services at a partial hospitalization program in Fort Worth. She left there to open her private practice in Mansfield 5 years ago. Her private practice specializes in developmental trauma, attachment styles, and anxiety. Welcome, Conchita.
Hi, thank you for having me.
And I am very honored to host Dr. Kevin Lambert. He's very passionate about contributing to the field of psychology as a clinician, supervisor, mentor, business owner, educator, and consultant. Dr. Lambert completed his doctorate degree in clinical psychology from Spalding University School of Professional Psychology and worked as a staff psychologist in Southern Methodist University's Student Health Center for nearly 10 years. In fall of 2001, Dr. Lambert earned his MBA from SMU's Cox School of Business with concentrations in entrepreneurial strategy and strategic leadership, and he founded Lambert Psychology as he started a solo private practice. Over the course of 2.5 years, Lambert Psychology evolved into a group of practice of family psychologists now known as Great Life Counseling Center. Located in Addison, Texas, Dr. Lambert and his Great Life Associates share the aim of strengthening relationships and enhancing life outcomes through the use of various psychological services. Welcome, Kevin. We're so glad you guys
Thank you for having me.
Thank you guys for joining us. So let's just jump right in. Can you tell us some of the effects of gaming on these young minds?
Well, I think growing up where gaming was coming onto the scene with Atari and Nintendo. I don't know if y'all remember.
Oh, yeah.
I'm dating myself
Donkey
a little
Kong,
bit.
Kong,
Yeah.
Pong was my favorite.
Right, exactly.
Missile Command, yeah.
Right.
Hey, we keep on going.
Right, and it was like, little stick guys like trying to hit the ball back and forth or, and I remember just the fascination of that and also seeing how my dad was just like, wow, like we had like marbles and like little sticks to play with and you guys have like these cool video games.
Right.
And so going up through college, like, I remember spending hours playing in between classes and that sort of thing. And so the evolution of now what my kids have, and the graphics and all of those sort of things, and having them on your phone.
Access.
Yeah,
24 hours
access.
and the level of sophistication is amazing, and so it's really tough even as an adult sometimes where you pick up a game and then you just or you have a game even on your phone, and to be able to put it down and do something hopefully more productive with your time. And so what I see in a general sense is that there are a lot of good things that come from playing on games in terms of like kids learning they pick up on different things about life or just the achievement aspect of it. However, it can really eat up a lot of time and become a bit of an obsession because they want that dopamine kick of being able to see the screen light up and see them getting those rewards.
Right, that instant gratification. And just to kind of jump on what you were saying was, I mean, if it's hard for us as adults, right, to finish the game or to shut it off. I mean, we grew up in a time where we didn't have that, right, where we actually learned some skills on how to control ourselves and, okay, it's dinner time, it's time to come in and that kinds of thing. So if our children haven't learned those things, it's just that makes it so much more difficult for them, right? So that's where it kind of falls on us as parents, because I think all of us in here are parents, to set those boundaries, and the time frames for them so that they're continuing to learn how to self-regulate, like most of us know how to, and it's still a struggle daily, but continue to still get to play with their friends.
Yeah. And it's tough. I mean, I know that I have to admit, especially over Christmas break, I noticed I am addicted to my phone. Now, I'm not doing a lot of gaming on my phone, but there's something about the bubbles, the notifications and being able to, somebody's liking something or somebody, is asking a question or something like that. And, I know that I'm on my phone too much and probably not setting a good example for moderation. So it can be very difficult to do and to model.
Yeah, and not to go too far off topic, but I mean, I think social media has more of an impact on that in terms of like as adults, like it would be our equivalent might be social media or our emails or whatever, you know what I mean? So we're not necessarily looking at a game, but we're still looking at things that are, sort of pseudo-social type of things.
Right. I'm even hooked on like when my laptop doesn't work. There's a little dinosaur game, and
on Google.
right. Just trying to hop over the little cactus, and I'm like, oh man, let me go and get. So it's I'm like, this is so silly. But it's so easy for anyone who loves to play games to get hooked in, and it's sucked into that vortex. And it's hard to get out of it.
Yeah.
And I'm told that there's an area of the brain that that these games are affecting the pleasure center of the brain, and that's the last area to develop in children. Can you tell me a little bit about that? And
well, I mean, I'm not going to speak too much to that. I'm not a neurologist, and I think, I have my area that I can talk about, and I mean, what I know is that what happens is kids get hyper aroused when they're on the game, and so getting them off is what's difficult. So it is kind of the dopamine is kicking in, cortisol, that stress hormone is kicking in. And so there's some changes that are happening, and which makes it difficult to get them off. Blood stops flowing to the kidneys and the gut and the liver and the bladder. So they forget that they are hungry. They forget that they need to go to the bathroom. They're so focused on that. And I think we've all been guilty about being at work. I mean, when I worked at a hospital, it was like I didn't pay attention to what was happening with my body because you're going.
Right.
Well, that's happening with our kids when they're on the computer. I'm guilty about Christmas holiday, right? It was, it's easy to allow them to stay on there, and then next thing you know, they've been on 3 or 4 hours. Well, I've already had lunch. Well, I've already done all these things, and now they're hungry, or now they got to go to the bathroom, or now, so I think what happens is they just shut off that thinking part of their brain, and it just goes straight into the primitive part where they aren't thinking about, listening to their body, and that's something that kids need to self-regulate, right? They have to be able to become aware of what's happening. So the longer they're on there, the less opportunities that parents have to teach them how to self-regulate, because kids don't come into this world knowing how to self-regulate.
Right.
Yeah.
Newborns are screaming, and what do they need? They need parents to go in and attune to them and figure out, we read their needs for them and help them through that. And if we're not doing that, especially early childhood, and middle school, actually the whole time, I mean, it's just going to snowball, and they're going to stop learning how to self-regulate, and then they don't know how to relate to people.
Right.
And it's a false sense of connection online.
Right.
Yeah. What would you say is an appropriate age to allow kids to even begin gaming at? There's games for little. I mean, they're toddlers, and So, what is an appropriate age? And just kind of your thoughts about that.
Well, I could tell you, early on, the concern is them becoming developing a dependency on it, where I think that even as parents, the tendency is for us to basically treat the electronics as the babysitter.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And so,
I've done that.
Just
Guilty.
awareness of seeing that with with a lot of the parents that I've worked with. My wife and I tried really hard when we started out with our kids was, no electronics. We didn't want them to have iPads. We didn't want them, we were like, maybe a little bit more strict about that, just trying to avoid it.
Yeah.
But what we ran into was that, their cousins and their friends and all of them were, what? You don't know how to play this? You don't know this game?
Right.
And so, they were kind of late to the game in regards to kind of discovering electronics, learning how to work them. But, but they had cousins that could go through your phone and download stuff, and they could tell you how to work your phone better than you. And so, and I think that probably, I would try to push as late as you can to 4 or 5 if you can at least, and then just trying to introduce them in very small doses. Even with television, that's another big one too, because I think it really, usually that's the first thing that tends to happen is we sit them in front of the tube.
Right.
And that's kind of the beginning of that slippery slope into the dependence on electronics, and sort of engage them, because one of the things that helps build and develop the brain and intelligence is sort of encouraging imagination and free thinking. And so, encouraging them to be creative and to create worlds and to build things and to design things and to sit in boredom and learn how to be bored and figure out something to do with that.
Be creative.
Yeah.
Well, and I know, I think it's the American Pediatric Association, if I'm saying it correctly. I mean, they don't even recommend children under 2 having any kind of screen time.
Right.
Wow.
So, but so many, there's apps out there for children that are that young.
Right.
I mean, I've had clients in my office that, have to bring their infant, and they immediately give them, their phone. I'm like, no, let's just, it's okay, right? It's not the first baby to cry.
Right.
So, it's a challenge.
Yeah.
And it's a babysitter often.
Yeah, I think parents are tired, and they don't want to hear their kids fussing all the time, and it's like, here, take this and
the pacifier,
right here,
Right.
The electronic pacifier,
right? It's like sucking on a binky.
It really has. It has become the electronic pacifier.
That's a really good way to put it. I hadn't thought of it
great
that way.
analogy. And I don't want to say that electronics all bad, or that there aren't great programs that aren't educational. We've definitely used a lot of those in terms of helping them work on their math and helping them work on and nowadays even in the school system now, I mean, my middle schooler, almost everything's on her iPad.
Yes.
And school issues are an iPad, and everything is done through the iPad. And so there's part of that of just these are the times that we're in, where technology is just such a big part of the way we live.
Right.
But at the same time, we want them to not be so plugged to a screen that they can't, connect with the world or deal with boredom in other productive ways that are going to actually develop their thinking.
Yeah.
And there is no getting away from it, and we're not a very no, I was going to say technological house. We don't have any gaming systems in our home. Our kids don't have phones. We finally did get our 10-year-old a little gizmo watch, which is completely controllable by us, which, you know, we're that's his training wheels for, you know, a real device. And we just had a little ordeal with him this morning because he wanted to take his tablet that he got for Christmas from one of his relatives to school, and we were not cool with that. But he was like, you know, everybody else is bringing them, and his teacher even sent a message that they needed to download some apps over the break. And he was like, we need them for school. And they don't really because they have computers. So it's just if they have, because not everybody has a tablet or something like that. But, you know, it's part of our society, part of the fabric of, you know, our daily life. And we've got to figure out how to use them in moderation.
Right.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So speaking of that, is there anything that you guys can recommend to the parents that are listening to help kind of curb some of the screen time and the gaming and do things a little bit more in moderation?
You know, there's apps out there. I'm not too familiar with which apps that will shut down your, shut down your computer, will shut down the iPad, or I know the Amazon Fire has an application in it already that will shut it down at a certain time. But I really think that kind of takes the power and the authority away from the parent, right? If you're afraid to have authority over your child, then that's a different problem. You know, so it's maybe setting up some rules at the beginning on the front end of what your timing, your gaming is going to look like. And it should be really just screen time, like you said.
Yeah.
I mean, we forget the TV is screen time now.
Right.
Because it's,
I just said that the other day,
you
didn't I?
know, it's like that's part of that's screen time because it's those it emits the same light, it's emitting the same electronical, all that stuff. It's doing the same thing. So we have to remember. So they get off of their computer or their tablet, but then they turn the TV on. How is that different, right? We need to engage with our kids. So, I mean, just personally, what I do at home, my kids are a little older. They're 12 and 14. But when they started Minecraft, there is no end to that game, right? There's no end, especially the creative mode. I mean, it just goes on and on and on.
Right.
So it became a power struggle when I would say, it's time for dinner. You need to get off, right? And they would look at me like, well, I can't. I'm going to get lost, or the creeper's going to eat me, or I don't.
Right.
I'm like, whatever. And so I had to actually get in the game, learn about it myself, and then to find the words that they could hear. So I would say, get to a safe place in your game.
That's awesome.
And then it's dinner time. Now, the catch is, I mean, they could, it could take a while. So at that point, then I would
safe place.
Yeah. So then I would come in and say, okay, what's best for you? Would you like for me to turn off the computer, or would you like to turn it off? Right? Because this has got to end. We got to eat dinner. So but it's the parent still has to be the authority. You know?
Yeah.
I don't know. That's just my own take on it.
No, that's awesome. What you said is to actually play the game to get their terminology, and find that safe place or whatever it is, because you're right, these games don't end now. Fortnite, and I'm not super familiar with them, just from my kids going to other people's houses, honestly, but when we were playing games back in the day, Space Invaders ended, you got shot. Somebody won.
Yes. There's not a lot of
Pac-Man.
3 lives.
Right, exactly.
Right.
Pac-Man, you got eaten by a ghost. You're done.
And you only have 3 chances.
Exactly.
Yeah, so it is different now. I mean, and I think there's a lot of games that are like that don't really have an end game. But the benefit to Minecraft, when I started actually getting in there, was, man, they could really create so many different worlds, and it was interesting how my kids did use Minecraft to kind of learn how to build, and now my oldest son wants to be an architect. Now we'll see if that really translates, right? I'll be back in about 15 years to tell you if that actually worked.
Right.
But it is creative, and there are some really positive things that can come from it. But again, it's all about having the authority over your children to tell them, and that they understand, like, you mean it. Like you're going to follow through, and then there's respect in there.
Yeah. I know that having been in the classroom, we had educational games and to help kids learn, but it's not the same as educational games. It's not the same as gaming, and the appeal for educational games is nowhere near the draw of these
right.
online games that kids play.
That's right.
In your opinion, how do we encourage or foster? I don't design games, and you don't. But how can we encourage our children to create an environment where, if we're going to use it, if we're going to use these electronic devices, let's use it for good. How do we help to steer them in that direction to help them, to encourage them? Hey, you don't have to just play Fortnite. You don't have to just play Call of Duty, Black Ops, or whatever it is.
Right.
A lot of death games anyway. But how do we encourage kids to use it for good?
Well, it's tricky because a lot of this is shaped by social pressure too. You know? And so
good point.
My kids learned about Fortnite not because we put it in front of them,
Right.
or because gaming is going on a lot in our house, but because they're friends and they overhear about it and they hear about it from other family members and different things like that. And so, what was something that they probably, if they saw it on their own, might not have been interested in, but because of how popular it is, and then also I think kids are engaging those games because they, like you said, there's the lights and there's the different things that sort of help that dopamine rush,
Right.
and allow them to get the adrenaline.
And killing people. It's
Yeah.
strange how even I got him.
Right.
Bam. Shot him in the head.
Right.
Let's don't shoot him in the head in math.
Right.
Right. Exactly.
Maybe if there was in some of these games, they would want to play them.
Right. Well, I remember there was a game that I found fascinating. I think I was in high school, but there was a game that was like a drug dealing game, and it was like where you play, where you tried to basically make these deals, and you would try to accumulate a certain amount of money, and there was the first time where I was doing math, and I was doing things where I was trying to figure out strategy in the game to try to win the game or whatever. But I was a drug dealer in the game. So, right? And so
We're business people too.
Right. They are. But I don't and my parents are listening. They're probably like, man,
right. We didn't know that.
Right, we didn't know that.
They didn't know that.
But but I think that it was educational of sorts, because one of the things that I was thinking about, how can I get an edge in terms of trying to beat this game, but also, I was using basic math skills that I had learned in school to apply to that. The downside is that it had to be something kind of cryptic, something that was kind of violent or what have you, that was actually also holding my attention, if you will, or at least for my friends to talk about it, for me to find out about it, I guess. And so it's just trying to figure out a way to make it exciting in some way, while still being able to apply life skills. So wanting to be an architect, well, is there a way to build, like NBA Live back in the day, where you could build a team and you go be a part of the front office. A lot of games have stuff like that, where it's challenging the kid to think about the business, which is actually more realistic for our kids to think about how they could be a part of the business of the NBA versus being an actual player.
Right.
They're more likely to be able to be in a front office than they are likely to be on the court.
Right.
And so just thinking about that.
And why did it have to be a drug dealer? It could be a mogul, like a Jay-Z or
But
somebody who's got a lot of businesses and stuff.
Right.
That's more positive.
Yeah, absolutely. But that's a time that it was games like that were things that were already not necessarily, it was related to what I would see on TV. You know, the rapper or the ball player or different things like that I would quickly identify with and go, oh, that would be cool, to be able to be, able to own an NBA franchise or to build a franchise and put a team together. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Maybe we have someone that does gaming that could develop a game like that, right?
I actually was talking to somebody a couple of days ago, a friend of the family who's got a gaming company. So they are working on some more educational things. And one of the things he said, because I asked him, I said, why is it that these apps that are killing people and things like that are so addictive? Because, video game developers are actually studying the brains of kids and putting things into their games so that they will want more and can't stop. And I said, well, why isn't it? Why are they not doing that with learning games, educational games? And he said, the game developers, the educational game developers, are educators, teachers. They're not creative people. Right. And so they need to, take a page from these other app developers and game developers, because there is a way. I mean, just like you were saying, that was a game that was using math skills that you were learning in school, but you were something negative. But they very easily could have switched it just a little bit to be a mogul, and that still would have been interesting. Yeah. Everybody wants to be a baller, and making it rain and whatnot.
Shot callers. Yeah.
Right. Well, I mean, I think that at that time I had the, epiphany of wow, this is actually a business, and there's actually a lot of smarts that is applied to this. It's just going towards the wrong end. Right. So, realizing that, my education could be applied to a number of different things, but I was fascinated with the business aspect of how do I win and compete with the other, people on the corner or whatever, and win more corners. But it was an interesting thing in terms of, it was interesting. How do I
dominate the neighborhood?
Right. How do I dominate the neighborhood? Right. But I think that, in a white collar way, I mean, I think that those same dynamics occur in terms of trying to figure out ways to use math, use different things to try to figure out ways to improve. And so I think, engineering, my daughter likes art, and so she, games where she's able to color stuff and design things. My youngest wants to be a chef someday, and so she has this cooking game that we have to get her off of because
What's it called?
Is it Cooking Fever?
I think so.
Is that the one you were addicted to, babe?
Yeah. Where she's got to get the orders in. And
it's like a fast food place, and you got to make the burgers and the fries.
The lobster. And so she's trying to fill the orders, and they get into different levels. And, and she's telling her older sister, I got you to level 8 or whatever, and they get so excited about, I never understood that. You're getting her to the higher level. Where's the fun in that?
Right.
But they get so. I mean, she will spend hours on that. So to your question earlier, we have a rule where there's no electronics during the week. And my oldest is 11, and she has a phone, and it's partly because she has begged us forever, but also because it's a convenience for us to be able to contact her and for her to be able to get in touch with us. But we try to really limit their time on their phones or on their iPads during the week, and that's just a general rule in our house: no electronics during the week. Focus on school, focus on reading a book or doing something to sharpen yourself. And then on the weekends, we're a little bit more lax about it. But I mean, after about an hour or so, we tend to tell them do something else, or come up with something for them to do, some chores or something, to get them off their phone.
Yeah. Or even some learning games. I found at Five Below, so it was $5 or below. I think this was $5. A Scrabble twist game, and it was very similar to one of the games that we have on our phone that the kids like to play. And basically, it gives you some letters, and you have to make as many words out of the letters as you can. And so you can play it by yourself, or you can play it with a group of people. And the kids really love that. They had a lot of fun with that, and so they're learning, and they're not on some sort of screen.
Right.
And that was something that they enjoyed over the holiday.
Yeah. Hey, Conchita, how does gaming affect students' ability and desire to study and learn? In your thoughts.
Right. I'm just going to speak to this personally because this happened in my house with my oldest son. It was okay, so here's the rule: you come home from school, you do your homework, and then you can get online with your friends. what we started seeing was, well, he was rushing through his homework, right?
Yeah.
Just like finished, like I was like, how did you finish all that? I'm done. So, you know, he's online and I'm looking through it. I'm like, this is not.
This is
I
garbage.
mean, yeah, this is first your teacher can't read it,
Right.
and
Yeah.
second, these are all wrong. So, you know, we really had to make some adjustments. So I think it kind of depends on your child and their my youngest son. He's not like that at all. So we have to kind of tailor the rules to each one of our boys. And so for him, it's like you need to do your homework, but then I need to look at it, right? Or Dad needs to look at it, because it can. I mean, if that's all they're thinking about, you know, that I got to get online, my friends are getting on at 4:30, I got to finish, but the rule is I got to do my homework, then they're going to find a way to finish their homework, right? But really sloppily. So, I mean,
Right.
I think it does affect, you know, their motivation to continue to do their schoolwork, you know, and again, it's like trying to figure out what's really the best thing for each individual kid that you have
Right.
at home, because they're all so different.
Absolutely.
And so that's kind of what we had to do with ours, was like, okay, we're going to have to limit time and it just supervising his kind of work, because he's not self-motivated unless there's something kind of, you know, external, like, okay,
Yeah.
you got to show mom and dad your work before. So, I mean, I think it does. It distracts them. You know, I
Yeah.
think there's kids with ADHD that parents will tell me, no, he doesn't have ADHD because he can focus on the game. Well, yeah, but who can't focus on a game, right? I mean,
Right.
it's fun. It's hitting all the fun part
Yeah.
of your brain. We're actually having to sit and learn how to do geometry. That's not fun, right? And so they don't learn that tolerance of, you know, being
Yeah.
bored and actually the struggle, and they don't end up with grit to kind of push through
Grit.
the difficult
I love
stuff.
that.
So
Is speaking of ADHD, is this something that affects attention if you're gaming all the time? I know that you were saying they can focus on this, but does it cause problems focusing on other things?
Absolutely, absolutely. You know, I think it's, you know, when you get those dopamine rushes, and then when you have to go through the withdrawals of not being able to have it, it's going to affect their mood, right? And
Right.
so you begin that affects overall functioning.
Yeah.
And so their ability to concentrate, to focus, to sleep, you know, because they're wired and they're thinking about
Right.
this game, and
That's
they're,
right.
you know, and so, again, I'm not trying to say that gaming in and of itself is all bad. I
Right.
do think that it's fun. It's I enjoy it. It's an escape, you know, whenever I have time to do it. But you know, at the same time, the concern is that they are doing it to the point where you know, when it comes to other things that require quiet time and less of that quick response, you know, reading a book, you know, sitting down like an actual book and
Right.
turning the pages and
Right.
sitting in that stillness is really difficult.
Right.
My middle schooler, you know, she hates, you know, riding in the car and it's silent, and it drives her nuts. She
Right.
can't stand it. And you know, I say it all the time to my kids because they're like, "Well, I'm bored. I don't, you know," and I'm like, "It's good to be bored.
it's
Like,
Right.
okay
sit
to
in-
be
Right.
bored, right?
Let your
Yes.
imagination
Absolutely.
work.
Yeah.
You know,
Right.
like, you know, you can strike up a conversation if you like, but I want you to just sit in silence. You know,
Right.
But you know, I think that that's a challenge even for us as adults. I mean, you know, a lot of my business is tied in my phone, and so I tend to
Yes.
like be on my phone or on the
Right.
all
Flipping.
the time, and
Yeah.
it's really hard to shut off or to transition because it's like something that I'm like very aware of, like what's going on with my phone or
Right.
Right.
what's happening. So, and so trying to have like points where they're encouraged to sort of like, okay, let's have some quiet time. And so that was an exercise on the weekends. So during the week, especially when our kids were a little younger, trying to train them in that regard. Like during the week, there was no electronics, but on the weekends, we would have specific quiet time. And so the way we would balance it is with our oldest one who wasn't taking naps anymore. We would say nap time for our youngest, and then for our oldest, it would be like, it's quiet time.
Yeah.
So you're going to either take a nap, which you feel like you're too big to have to do, or you're going to read a book, or you're going to do something that, you know, work on your math, work on these type of things that were going to help her in school, but also to, you know, we find that she would oftentimes choose a book. and we'd say, okay, well, just go sit on your bed while you read, and she would
she'd
pass
fall
out.
asleep. Yeah.
Right.
Tricky.
But, you know, yeah, but you know, but her stamina and her attention span for the book was not the same. I guarantee you, if she had an iPad in front of her as she was sitting on the bed, she would have still been awake.
Right.
Absolutely.
And I think that it's a challenging comparison to compare an educational game that might feel a little bit more mundane, where she's actually challenging her brain. Whereas a lot of times, you know, the games that we enjoy the most, we're trying to veg out. We're trying to escape. You know, I don't want to think about anything. I'm watching TV because I don't want to think about anything. I just want to kind of just relax and decompress from the day.
Right.
And I think that that's the challenging, why it's very difficult, as you were saying, comparing educational to gaming,
Right.
you know?
Right. So if you had parents in front of you right now, which we do via radio, but if they were in a session with you, how would you encourage parents to set the tone for how to manage the evenings with electronics? First with themselves, then with their kids.
And I have a follow-up question that goes along with that. When should we shut it off? Like, when's too late before bedtime to shut it off for them to actually be able to shut their minds off and get the good quality REM sleep?
Right. Well, I mean, I bet we both probably can answer this question in different ways. I mean, one of the things that I often encourage parents to say, because usually when they come to me and ask me that, it's because they feel like they haven't kind of held the reins, right? So I always say, you know what? Tell them you're sorry. Like, I am so sorry that I've robbed you guys of an opportunity to learn how to be bored. So, you know, and that's all on me, and it's my fault and your dad's fault. And so here's what we're going to do. And then you kind of set up the rules how they need to be for your home. And then it's like, yes, it might seem like it's from one day to the next, but that's okay, right? It is going to be a challenge. It is going to be a struggle for everybody to get back on target, and allowing yourself to not be perfect, that we're going to mess up, and maybe you have someone come over to the house and, you know, your kids are on and they're getting away with it, and that's okay. But notice it, right? You go and say, you know what? I noticed that you guys didn't get off on your own, but that's all right. You owe me now 20 minutes. So tomorrow it's going to be 20 minutes less. And it's about respect, and it's about setting the boundaries and accepting responsibility as a parent that, you know, I've kind of screwed up and allowed this to go on.
Yeah.
You know?
I think also kids, you know, they, you know, especially once they get to 9, 10, they know a hypocrite when they see one. And I think
Absolutely,
that the
yeah.
challenge
Well.
you know what I'm saying? You know, so I think the challenge is that, you know, setting an expectation for them that you also are willing to try to follow to some extent.
Yeah.
You know, because I think that if you're always on your phone, you're always on, you know, the computer, and you're expecting them to get off all the time and fussing at them about screen time, you know, it's like, that doesn't line up, because I'm trying to be like you. And that isn't,
Right.
you know, so I'm trying to be like you. You're my role model. You're my hero. And you're telling me that that's not okay, but then you go and do it all the time.
Do as I say, not as I do.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
Right.
And so, you know, and I know, like, you know, I mean, I'm on the computer, you know, working, doing things all the time. So, like, I'm very conscious of, like, okay, be careful now. You can't tell them you can't be on there when you know full well you got to be on there for your stuff, too.
Right.
So it's
Right.
like trying to figure out, okay, is there a time where I'm going to say, all right, we're going to shut this down, and we're going to hang out, and we're going to do things, you know, or this is for this period of time, we're going to do something productive. And so wanting to, you know, and this is a constant struggle, like, you know,
Absolutely.
knowing that I, for myself, need to spend more time just sitting, unhurried time, whether that be, you know, from a spiritual standpoint, spending time praying and, like, showing them that example, or spending time reading or doing something that doesn't have me tied to a screen in some way.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So
Yeah.
in some ways, we have to kind of re-engage ourselves outside of screen time, so we can learn how to re-engage our children.
Yeah.
Because if we don't know how to do it ourselves, we're so stuck, then how are we going to, you know, help our kids?
Yeah.
I want to jump in here real quick. We did have a question from Facebook Live. Aaliyah Henry wants to know how many hours are recommended per day for children ages 10 to 13? So that's like middle school age.
I'm not sure what as I was kind of preparing for today, there's not a specific time. What it says is that it should not interfere with their daily living activities. It should not interfere with some family time, should not interfere with their academics, and it should not interfere with going outside and playing, should not take the substitute. Right, for missing games and stuff. And that's one of the things you'll start noticing in kids is that they're going to, when it becomes a problem, is they're going to want to quit their after school activities.
Yeah.
I don't want to go anymore. Or do I have to go to practice? And it's like, well, what do you mean, right? So just noticing those kinds of things. So there's not a specific time from what I read that's recommended from the APA. It's just more about not allowing it to interfere with their daily living activities.
Right, that's good.
I think going along with the theme of like not having electronics much during the week. I mean, they're going to go on YouTube and want to watch a video or look something up, and that's fine. But just trying to minimize it as much as possible during the week because there's so many other things that they could be doing. So are you working on your school? Did you practice your instrument? Did you, why don't you play outside? Why don't you play with your siblings? Why don't you come in here and help me cook or clean up or something like that?
Right,
So
right.
there's so many things that they could be doing during the week. And then, of course, keeping them active and plugged into different activities also helps fill the week too.
Yeah.
So during the week, I don't see, any reason for them to be on their electronics more than an hour, because there's just no room for it if they're doing things that they should be doing
Their
that are
evening
going to help.
responsibilities,
Right,
right.
exactly.
Is that an hour total for the 5 days or an hour a day?
The look on
Be
your
specific.
It's a fair question. I mean, they could have like a day that just happens to be rather dead, and they spend an hour on their phone, or on their game or whatever, because they've done a great job and they've taken care of their responsibilities, and so they want to spend an hour. But as far as I wouldn't want them on it right before going to bed because
Right.
that's going to affect their sleep and their
Right.
mindset. I want them going to bed thinking about some other things, and so. I would want to, okay, you can do this, but there needs to be some sort of hour, 45-minute to an hour gap between that and when they go to bed. So they need to have some sort of decompression time,
A buffer
where they're
time.
winding down,
Yes.
right?
And that includes TV. We forget about TV.
Yeah,
Right,
no,
right,
absolutely. Because
right.
it's the same thing. It
Yeah.
gets the brain going, and then it's difficult to kind of settle down.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not a big fan of kids having TVs in their room
No.
before
Yeah.
they're, especially before adolescence, just because it gives them more access and encourages that. But also, you need to be able to monitor as a parent what they're doing and what's on that screen.
Absolutely.
So that's the tough thing with cell phones is that trying to monitor what's on their phone, what are they looking at, who's saying what, to who.
Yeah.
That sort of thing.
Yeah.
Well, guys, this has been a wonderful conversation. Thank you so much. Unfortunately, we're out of time.
Oh, wow.
So I know it went fast, didn't it?
Yeah, it did.
So thank you, everybody, for joining us online and on Facebook. What we're usually going to do about this time is let you know what's going on with Noggin. We have workshops and webinars and free services and such. So right now, we want to let you know that we're offering free tutoring in the Dallas-Fort Worth area through Noggin Educational Foundation, and space is limited. And you can go to nogginfoundation.org to find out more information about that. We would also love for you to donate to Noggin Educational Foundation so we can continue providing these services for free to students from low-income families. And you can do that on our website, schooldaysshow.com as well. And there we'll also have the podcast from past shows and more information about who David and I are and about Noggin Educational Coaching and Noggin Foundation.
In next week's show, Rondi Allen, a licensed behavioral therapist, and Suzanne Scott, head of special education at Bowie High School in Arlington, Texas, will be joining us to talk about issues related to special needs. And you can email us with questions at info@schooldaysshow.com.
Well, the last thing we want to say is that we are definitely parenting by grace. We depend on God to give us the wisdom and the strength we need to raise our kids into flourishing adults. And if you would like to know more about this, please feel free to email us at info@schooldaysshow.com. Have a great week.
Great.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.